Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Eli Lilly updates a major study on a COVID-19 antibody treatment, while IU and IU Health partner up on a web-based screening effort. Purdue researchers say they've come up with a new way to save space on your phone. Butler's basketball coach weighs in on unrest following the killing of George Floyd. And our COVID-19 Business Survival Series continues with a look at how companies have been forced to innovate. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. The world's first study on an antibody treatment against COVID-19 has roots here in Indiana. Indianapolis-based Eli Lilly has started an early-stage human trial to test the potential treatment. Lilly chairman and CEO Dave Ricks joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about the study and when the treatment could be available.
Let's talk about this. I mentioned a moment ago, your company, Lilly, making global headlines. This is the world's first study of an antibody treatment against the disease. Previously, all of the other treatments have been really repurposed from other diseases. Talk about the significance of this study and why you're aggressively pursuing it.
Yeah, thank you. We're very excited. I'm so proud of our scientists who have worked at really record speed in the early days of the pandemic, identifying a partner, a Canadian company called Epsilera, that helped us identify this antibody, which is a protein that your body makes to fight disease. We isolated this one from actually a surviving patient, and then we make it in industrial scale, where we began testing. We announced that we began testing on Monday, and we could have data coming in just a few weeks' time that could show it's effective. If so, we've already begun the motions to produce it at quantity, because we know everyone's concerned about the risk of COVID-19, particularly for hospitalized patients in the fall. And we're poised to be ready to do that, and proud of Lilly being the first in the world to test COVID-specific new medicine. Yeah,
will be very interesting to watch that develop. You mentioned the partnership with the Canadian company and doing that early on and in a really breakneck speed, if you will. You hopped on the coronavirus, the pandemic early on, in part based on what you were seeing in some of your global operations.
Correct. Yeah, as a global company, we operate large scale operations in China. So we had seen that at the end of January, early February. It then moved to Europe. Happened to be in places where Lilly has large facilities as well, France, Madrid, and Italy. And so it wasn't too difficult to determine at that point that this was going to be a major issue in the U.S., and we better get to work on business continuity plans. We need to make the essential life-saving medicines like insulin that we make here in Indiana, and make preparations to have strong business continuity during the pandemic. We sent our people home early. I know that got some news locally, but we're glad we did it. And we're bringing people back slowly to protect human health, but also the people who need to come to work to make medicine and run our laboratories.
Yeah, you early on, you also partnered with the state and others on testing. And I know that testing, as we were talking off camera a moment ago, is going to another phase that will have some developments that we'll see perhaps as early as this summer.
That's right. Yeah. So Lilly really has been a key backstop to the Indiana State Department of Health during the pandemic, perhaps doing 30 to 40% of the tests in the state so far. A reminder, we're not a testing company. We repurposed a laboratory to support this. We'd like to use that laboratory again to support clinical trials and other things we do. And I think it's good for the state to install a permanent and regionalized capacity to test. When I talk to other employers, what they want to know is, can my workers, if they feel sick, get tested and a result back in 24 hours? So we need sites in South Bend, in Fort Wayne, in Evansville, and that's what we're working with the state on, is to replicate our laboratory in those places.
Dave, as you look at the impact that the pandemic has had on Lilly and will have for the remainder of the year, give us some sense in terms of the impact on the business.
Yeah, well, we had a very strong Q1 in part because there was some forward buying. We've said that will wash out a bit on the balance of the year, but we kept our guidance for the year. I guess, fortunately, we're in the health business, and that's typically less cyclical with economic turns. No doubt many businesses are struggling, and it will be a difficult second half of the year for the country. Now, we feel great about our prospects because we make products people really need, but also we've been so successful at launching new medicines. And Gary, it's important to point out the FDA has actually approved 2 medicines since we've been in the pandemic, which is really remarkable. A new cancer medicine and an Alzheimer's tracing medicine, so as well as new indications. So our business goes on. The innovation engine at Lilly is in great shape, and that needs to continue to grow the company, and that's what we're focused on for the long term.
A lot going on at one of Indiana's marquee companies, Eli Lilly and Company. Dave Ricks, the CEO at Lilly. As always, thank you, Dave, for joining us. Be safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon. Take care.
Meantime, Indiana University and IU Health are partnering on a new web-based COVID-19 screening effort that can determine if a person needs further testing. The effort is part of a plan to open IU campuses for the fall semester. IU President Michael McRobbie and IU Health CEO Dennis Murphy joined Kylie Valletta in the business of health.
Michael, let's start with you. Tell us how IU's strengths in medicine and public health and the gathering of those strengths makes this reopening possible.
Well, Kylie, in the early days of the pandemic, after we had closed down all in-person instruction on the campus, the next question for us really was going to be, what would we do in the fall semester as we worked our way through this? And absolutely paramount to us was the safety of the university community. So we put together a committee chaired by the dean of our School of Medicine, which happens to be one of the largest school of medicine in the country and one of the best, a number of our deans of public health and others, to help us make the decision, to give us the expert guidance on what we needed to do. And one of the key things that they advised was that it was essential that we have in place a program for the screening and the testing of anybody in the IU community who was symptomatic, no matter which campus it was on. So the agreement that was put in place provides those services on around 15 of IU's facilities, 13 different cities in Indiana, and anybody who's symptomatic can use the process that we've developed in our partnership with IU Health to ultimately be tested for COVID-19.
Okay, so Dennis, let's talk a little bit about that process. Can you just give us a quick overview of how it works, sort of the framework of that process?
Sure. We've been very fortunate to have this evolve over the past 90 days where we've screened and tested over 45,000 people, but it is as simple as downloading an app on your phone or making a phone call initially, and you get in contact with one of our clinicians to go through a screening process, because actually a lot of this is very individually dependent to make sure we understand your exact circumstances. And then depending on the outcome of that screening, we direct you to the appropriate clinical resources, whether that is to get testing, to immediately isolate and quarantine, or if more severe, to come and access clinical resources, meaning come to the hospital. We want to make sure you get the right care. So we feel very confident, given our experience over the last 90 days, that we've done this for our own employees who have worked throughout this pandemic, and also the general public, that we've got a very strong system in place and able to translate that to help the university.
And we should mention that screening effort is free to any member of the IU community. Michael, we only have a little bit of time left, but sort of a soft launch going on at the IU campus right now with researchers heading back to campus. You have about a 2 to 3 month window before students come back. What are you really focused on during these couple last months before students are back on campus?
Well, what we're really focused on are the massive preparations that have to be made for resuming a mixture of in-person and online education for our students in the fall on all of our campuses, but to do it safely within the parameters that were recommended by the committee that Dean Hess chaired that I mentioned before. The scale of the modifications that are going to be required, social distancing and instruction, changes in the way our dorms work, changes in the way in which people actually mix on campus. all of that has to be put in place at a fine level of detail over the next 3 months or so, and that is an enormous amount of work. But an excellent team at IU is underway, and as I said before, what is so foundational to this is the agreement with IU Health, our partnership with IU Health, because we decided it was vital not to reinvent the wheel here. We had that partnership going back 20 years to when IU Health was established. That should be the foundation of what we did.
All right. Well, IU Health, Dennis and Michael, I know you're both firing on all cylinders right now. Your organizations are. Good luck moving forward with this program.
Thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Callie.
Many smartphone users will delete apps when their phone storage space gets close to full. Purdue University researchers say they've come up with a system that speeds up app downloads while using less storage space. Professor Saurabh Bagchi joined us with details on how AppStreamer works.
Okay, let's talk about the issue here. Our mobile phones can get clogged up, cluttered up with a lot of content. We want to download an app. We can't because it's too full. How does AppStreamer work to solve that?
So AppStreamer is a technology that allows you to stream code, resources, or data to your mobile device or to your tablet just before you need it. So your device does not need to preload and store all the items that it could conceivably need. Instead, this technology is going to predict, using machine learning models, what it will need and when, and fetches it from the cloud just in time or from a close-by edge server just in time. Consider the example that we can relate to, that Netflix movies, they are streamed. And you don't have to first sit down and store the entire movie on your computer before you start to watch it. And this kind of an issue is even more important for mobile devices because they are smaller, they have smaller storage space, and they're often in places where network bandwidth may not be great. So AppStreamer gets at that problem and solves it.
Yeah, and this, I know, is very much a team effort. Certainly Purdue University involved, Georgia Tech, AT&T, a number of partners are really working on this project.
Yeah, this is very much a team effort, and we love it that way. Every member in the team brought in a unique expertise, a unique perspective to this work. For example, AT&T came in and helped us really understand their cellular network internals and understand where this technology is going to work great, and importantly also where this technology is not really needed. And also academic colleague at Georgia Tech with expertise in wireless networking.
Yeah, and really, obviously, there's the benefit to consumers like us who, from a convenience standpoint, and getting more things on your mobile device. But you look at self-driving cars, the advent and the evolution of 5G. Those all play a role in this as well.
Yeah, so looking forward a little bit, you can think of autonomous vehicles where you will be nicely relaxing in the back seat and your car will be driving you to wherever you want to go. Or even more near term, where it's a mix of human and autonomous driving, where I want to get information about critical events, like what is the road condition in the area that I'm going to drive to. And this is a case where I cannot anticipate all possibilities before I sit in the car. So there is this need to be able to predict and to be able to download the necessary information just before you need it so that you can have a safe and efficient driving experience. And the core technology that we have here can also be repurposed for that application.
Innovative technology being developed right here in Indiana. Purdue University professor Saurabh Bagchi, thanks so very much for joining us. We look forward to following the story of AppStreamer going forward.
Bloomington-based Oliver Winery is among the fastest-growing wineries in the country. Oliver sold over 500,000 cases of wine in 38 states in 2019. That's a 20% increase over 2018. Around Indiana, reporter Mary Rachel Redmond takes us to Monroe County to shine a spotlight on this 100% employee-owned Indiana business.
It all began in the 1960s when IU law professor William Oliver started experimenting with home winemaking.
My earliest memories with my father helping to make wine in the basement of our house. I just remember the smells of fermenting wine and sort of the clanking of glass and we're bottling and just the time in the basement. I don't know if I was any help or not, but I sure enjoyed the time with him.
Professor Oliver took his pet project from the basement to Bloomington, where he planted grapes and established a small vineyard.
Initially, it was a hobby winery, right? I mean, if he sold enough wine to pay the bills, that was a successful year.
And what started out as a hobby nearly 50 years ago has now turned into a multi-million-dollar business that just keeps on growing.
Oliver is now one of the largest and fastest growing wineries in the country, recently expanding into 38 states, including California.
It's been a goal of ours for a lot of years, and so proud to kind of be at this point in our growth and our history. We don't try to compete in spaces where wineries on the West Coast might. We think about how can we do things that are different, and that has been a real key to our success.
Another secret to Oliver's success?
We're 100% employee owned, and that's a really unique thing. That means every one of our employees has this true stake in the game, day in and day out, and it's something that's notable.
We just started working on all this together, built a better team to sell wine that was just kind of get better every year, and we just started growing a lot. So last year we were just a hair over 500,000 cases of wine, which is a heck of a lot of wine.
And he has no plans of slowing down.
We'll continue to grow, clearly what we want to do. It has been helpful for us to be out of the mainstream, to be in Indiana, to be away from the competition out in California. There's 5,000-6,000 wineries in California. I mean, I don't know if we'd be able to thrive in that environment. The pathway to that is to continue to make great wines and package them attractively and offer great marketing and sales support to our distributor partners, and it's all that working together just to continue to grow the winery.
Mary Rachel Redman, Inside Indiana Business.
Butler University men's basketball coach Laval Jordan is the first black coach in any sport at the university. He took to social media with strong words following the killing of George Floyd in Minnesota. Jordan discussed his feelings on the situation as well as his vision for the Bulldogs with Bill Benner on Inside Indiana Sports.
I thought your comments that you made the other day were just so heartfelt. Just give us, again, some of your general thoughts as your reaction to what has occurred here in our country.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me again. Always good to see you as well. And I think that was to be honest, it took a few days to just process and digest all the emotions, that led up to even saying anything. Talking to my dad and family, and just trying to, and my family at home, just trying to get through all the things that you feel to be able to even speak out on it. So, and didn't really know what to say. Just there's the tragedy of murder itself and a senseless act. Of George Floyd and what that is, and then there's a history behind all of it, and so I just had to, as a Christian and a believer in my faith, and it hurts because to be taught and to love your neighbor as yourself and do unto others as and that's a human way. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to be. It's and from a human standpoint, but also as a black man, you hurt, just historically, and some of the pain and the systematic racism and injustices of our history. And then to think in 2020 that we would have so much progress in other ways, but still be watching something like that, dealing with something like this, and a father at home who's got to explain things to his children, and as things were explained to me, but trying to make sense of it all, because my kids, I've got a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 7-year-old daughter, and it's hard to grasp. Like they don't, they haven't grown up, and they're wondering why people do things like that, and then obviously as a coach, you just hurt. It's heartbreaking because it could be one of our players, and that could happen to you. Just those things go through your mind. So there's just a lot of, like you said, heartbroken on so many levels to process all of those things, and then think about what we could do, things that you could do to make change. And all of us have to own it. All means all. If you have a heart, all those that have a heart. And if you don't, we know there's people that have, there's evil people, but most aren't, and I'm encouraged by those that have spoken out, those that have reached out to me personally, or just reached out in general, those that have, there's such a willingness right now, maybe like none other in our history, to seek change, to be a part of the solution, and to all work towards finding those things, that we can do in our communities, in our homes, in our spheres of influence.
Hey, Laval, we got about a minute left. Talk about what interactions you've been able to have with your players, either whether they've been here or not, or whether they're at home. What kind of interactions have you had with them? Yeah, we've met with our team and, just listening to them as much as anything, what they're feeling, what's going through their minds, trying to help educate them. And they listening to them express themselves and their feelings on it and the state of things, and them wanting to be a part of the solution as well, wondering what they can do to help things be in a better place. We just quickly, let's talk about basketball ever so briefly. You guys had a great season last year. Looking forward to the NCAA tournament, which didn't occur. You got a top recruiting class coming in. I know you're anxious to get everybody back, and their plans are still undetermined, but you guys should be pretty good this year. Yeah, excited about our upperclassmen that are returning. The 3 starters coming back, and then the young guys coming in that are hungry to contribute in any way that they can. And then we also added 2 transfers here in the offseason. And so, we'll see how the group forms together. Hopefully we can all be together and be back at some point soon here. And I think those conversations are in the works. And as far as return to campus, but everybody's patiently waiting and anxious to get back and staying connected virtually as best as possible at this point. But yeah, we're excited about this year's potential. Well, Laval, I've known you for a long time. I've got nothing but respect for you, and I know you're going to do a great job on the Butler sideline, but more importantly, a great job in leading the conversation. Thanks for being on the program. Hey, Bill, thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
21 years ago, an Eli Lilly scientist and an Indiana University academic realized there were very few women working in high-tech jobs in Indianapolis. So Joyce Gustafson and Georgia Miller founded Women in High Tech. Since then, the nonprofit has blazed an important trail for women and girls. We get details on what's next for the organization from President Angela B. Freeman.
You've got a big event coming up in October, the 20th anniversary of the Leading Light Awards. It's a scholarship gala. We want to talk about the impact the organization has had. But first, the Leading Light Awards is really a special event. Give us a little a preview of what we can expect at that October 1st event.
Sure, thank you. So our Leading Light Awards event is our signature biennial event. We have it every 2 years, where we really recognize, promote, and advance women that have shown qualities of expertise, professionalism, leadership, service, courage, and tenacity in STEM fields. And it's a great opportunity to not just recognize local leaders, female leaders, but also to give back with regard to giving scholarships to young women and girls in STEM fields. So it's really just an awesome event that we're always super excited to host every year.
Yeah, and I've been very, fortunate and honored to participate in a number of those events. But Angela, talk about too, because I know you have some shifting deadlines for some of the awards. I know you're going to be handing out a lot of scholarships as well.
Absolutely. So our original Leading Light Awards deadline for applications and nominations was June 1st, but we have extended that to June 10th because we recognize that with COVID-19 and some of the recent unrest, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and particularly an opportunity for people to step up. And we wanted to have an opportunity to recognize some of those people. So we thought it was great to extend the deadline to June 1st. With regard to the scholarships and professional development grants, the current deadline is July 1st. And that's really an opportunity that Women in High Tech pledged this year in honor of the 20th anniversary of the Leading Light Awards to award $20,000 of scholarships and professional grants to women and girls in STEM. However, we're super excited that with the partnerships with so many of our partners and sponsors and local businesses, we're now at almost $35,000 of scholarships and grants for high schoolers, undergraduate and graduate, people in school, professionals that are looking to go back to school. So there's really a diverse array of opportunities to get more funding for STEM opportunities. And we're really excited.
Very impactful. Angela, we only have about 30 seconds left, but the impact that Women in High Tech has had over these 20 years, I know has been substantial and really focused on girls and women in science, technology, engineering, and math. Give us your perspective on the impact the organization has had over these 2 decades.
Yeah, so Women in High Tech started as a small local entity and has now grown over the course of 20 years to almost 2,000 members in every area of science, technology, engineering, and math, and particularly with the specific focus on increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, this Leading Light Awards theme on October 1st will be equity and inclusion. So not just focusing on women in STEM, but all women in STEM, and making sure that Indiana is a much more inclusive environment that really supports all women in STEM. And I think that is the trajectory of the organization for future growth.
All right, major event coming up October 1, the Women in High Tech Leading Light Awards. Angela Freeman, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your leadership as well. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much for having us, Gary.
Okay.
And finally this week, if there's an economic silver lining to the COVID-19 pandemic, it may be that companies have been forced to innovate to survive. That's the focus of Part 3 of our KSM COVID-19 Business Survival Series. This week's guests include Amplify founder and CEO Santiago Jaramillo, Katz Sapper & Miller COO Jamie Ellis, and Anvil co-founder and CEO Robin Fleming.
Jamie, I'll start with you. Obviously, there's never a good time for a pandemic, to be sure. But at Katz Sapper & Miller, this hit really at a very inopportune time in terms of right in the heart of tax season.
Yes, it was right after our March 15th business tax deadline when we had to ask our team to work from home just so we could stress test our systems and make sure that the capability of our IT systems could hold 350 plus people working from home. Fortunately, that did work, and our people began working from home. I believe it was the next day until further notice. And it also forced us on the tax side, knowing that we had an April 15th deadline that was ultimately going to be extended to July 15th, that we had to really look at digitizing our tax process more so than it had been in the past. While we have made headway over the years in doing this, we really pushed this ahead more quickly. And as a result, it allowed our staff to work more effectively from home or ultimately when they get back to the office, which is a great thing. And number two, it really will allow them to focus their time more on consulting with our clients and even adding more significant value to our clients' needs.
Yeah, good stuff. Robin, give us, first of all, great company. You're a co-founder and CEO at Anvil. Give us the kind of the business model, if you will, at Anvil and what it's all about.
Yeah, so our focus has really been about enabling workforce safety in a new way with digital solutions. And we've been doing that for a while now with a number of customers who are really focused on changing culture. And so, with COVID, what we're seeing is a dramatic increased focus on the workforce. You really have to at this point. You have to think about how are you going to not only communicate and train, but deal with all of the changes that have been happening pretty frequently. And, from our perspective, we want to eliminate paper process. So the whole focus on digital is huge for us, and it's huge for our customers to not only communicate, but to engage those workers so that they do feel safe and they understand what's happening. So we've seen a dramatic increase, I think, in interest around those types of digital solutions because paper just doesn't work to make a difference.
Yep. Santiago, Amplify. Give us the business model there at Amplify. We've had you on the show several times, Robin, you as well. But give us the business model and what you're all about there at Amplify.
Sure. There is so much opportunity lost in organizations by not truly understanding the needs of what teams and employees need. And the bigger the company, the harder it is to have that heartbeat and pulse on how employees are doing, and more specifically, what can managers and leadership do to create higher levels of employee engagement and increase performance in teams. And what it's done is, as companies and leaders become more geographically and physically distanced from their teams, it becomes harder to do the taking a pulse by walking around. It's not happening anymore. And so what we do is we help organizations truly understand the state of employee engagement. But not only that, it's not just about surveying the data, it's about driving actionable insights that drive real business performance. And so our team of expert employee engagement strategists already were experts in helping leaders figure out, how do we remote work effectively? How do we communicate with our teams? And we've seen an increased focus as businesses have had to do a couple of things: pivot their business model, and that requires tremendous levels of existing employee engagement, because people don't innovate and solve hard problems when they're checked out and barely satisfied and leaning back. And so companies really want to energize employees in this time when they're making changes and really need employees to lean in and pursue the mission and the goals of the company with increased fervor and vitality.
Yeah, Santiago, anything that has surprised you in the process? I'm sure you've dealt with clients, customers, and others who've handled this very deftly, and others who maybe it's been a bit of a culture shock, if you will. But anything surprising over the last several months?
Yeah, two things come to mind. Number one, panic is contagious, and so is leadership. And we are at a time right now where employees and teams are looking for leaders to step up, to not only care about the work aspect for them, but to care about the whole person and the whole well-being. And companies are kind of bifurcated. They're either hitting it out of the park and leaning into greater levels of leadership, or quickly eroding the trust of their teams as their teams begin to realize that they're just seen as a cog in the wheel and not really truly cared for by leadership, number one. Number two, I recently wrote a piece for Fast Company on this, when our research showed that burnout right now is just as present as it was before the crisis, the COVID crisis. But now, before, what was burning people out was work. Now, the work from home part, is what's causing burnout. In many ways, work is an outlet for folks. And now all the parts of personal finance, working with children or pets in the house, those are the parts that are the hardest parts of somebody's life, not work and commuting, but now the personal home aspects of work from home. And that flip has been fascinating. And employers, the really progressive employers, are surrounding their employees with support for how they can help them at the whole person level, because that's their level of challenge and opportunity. Yeah.
Jamie, you mentioned earlier some of the things you've learned and things you've picked up, advantages. Any challenges going forward as you look at kind of post-pandemic and coming out of this, hopefully?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. While we already had some of our workers working from home, having our entire workforce work remotely is an entirely different animal. And the biggest challenge, Gary, is the fact that we've maintained this great culture for 75 years at Cat Sapper and Miller, and we discuss this every day within our leadership group. How do we ensure that we're retaining that culture in a remote working world? And Santiago, we've used him and his team to help us with this, and have our employees give us feedback so we can make the meaningful changes to make this a workable solution, into the future. We hope and think that through Santiago's help and some of the things that we're doing internally, that not only will we maintain our culture, but we're actually going to be able to enhance it.
Yeah. Robin, as you look, it's talked a lot about out of crisis. Many times comes opportunity. As you look at opportunities that you may be pursuing coming out of the pandemic, what might some of those be?
Well, I'll start with, the type of customer that we have were not the frontline employees that got to go work out of their home office. They've been working the whole time in hazardous environments. And so if you think about the hazards that they face, there's lots of hazards they face every day. And now with the pandemic, that's just one more workplace hazard. So when you think about the opportunities already, a company that invests $1 in injury prevention can have a 2 to 6x return on that investment. So I think the opportunity is to really look at what you're doing with your workforce. As we talked about, employee engagement is so very important. And when you have a disengaged workforce, they make 70% more mistakes than those who are engaged. And that can be huge. That can mean someone loses their life. So I think the opportunity for companies to really lean in on technology, perhaps when they haven't before, the need was always there. But now you have very compelling reasons with the pandemic and with communicating to those workers to leverage technology. Of course, we love software technology. We love mobile technology. I'm a technologist. That's what I love. But there's lots of different type of technology that helps not only with that worker engagement, but can help with social distancing and other things. So I think it's time for companies to lean in really hard on digital when perhaps they couldn't before.
Yeah, Santiago, I think Robin brings up an interesting point on leaning in on technology. Many companies that perhaps didn't before are doing it now. Do you sense that as being something we're going to see a lot more, and companies are going to be a lot more open to doing going forward?
Certainly. I think technology plays an important part. And what's interesting for us is we're really doing two things as we learn from our customers on how they need most support. Katz-Appenmill is a fantastic example where they realized that measuring and doing surveys of employees once a year was just simply not keeping up with the pace of change. And boy, are things changing more dynamically than ever. And so we're helping our customers take a more agile approach to listening to employees, acting on those insights. And that flywheel of innovation is how quickly we can listen, learn, adapt, understand, and put into practice. And so number one, agility through technology, and not just delivering employee engagement insights to HR, but delivering it straight to the line level manager, who's the one that's typically most equipped to deal with it and has the most burning fire. And then number two, to talk about technology, we're actually leaning into the other side of it, which is actually we hear from our customers that they need a partnership and being led and guided on their employee engagement and organizational health journey. And so we're actually investing into our expert human services actually to guide customers not only with technology, but also kind of that personal trainer who not only helps take measurements of body fat and fitness levels and things, but actually helps us motivate us and actually keep up with the workout regimen. And so the equivalent would be to actually take action from the survey and to drive real change in the organization. So it's not just a cool PowerPoint once about what employees are saying, but it's truly operationalized and it improves the culture, the performance of the organization, and the lives of the employees doing the work. Santiago
Jaramillo, also Robin Fleming and Jamie Ellis, thank you all for some great perspective. I think information that companies and entrepreneurs can use going forward. Thanks for joining us.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.